G'day, welcome back to Brupeg. We need to get our DC electrical system installed. Part of that means we have to get our AC generator up and running.
Because the two systems need to talk to each other.
So it is running, it doesn't have any water in it right now. I need to put a radiator cap on the top of it, and I also need to finish the exhaust. So let's smash that out so that we can get our DC system up and running with Damon in a couple of days' time.
Brupeg was a sunken fishing trawler that was stripped out and ready for the scrapyard. She's just completed a 10-year rebuild that's brought her back to life. With the help of volunteers and funded by our Patreons, community and subscribers, she'll be crewed by passionate people from around the world. If you'd like to be involved and support the project, please consider joining us on Patreon or subscribe to the channel. There's a link in the description below. In this episode, we're going back a couple of months for the start of our Genset exhaust. Muffler, radio. Down here you can see we've got some stainless straps that have been welded onto this muffler. We've still got the exhaust pipe here that needs to be added onto, but we can't add onto that until we know where we're mounting it, and that's where the stainless straps come into place. These are so that we can prevent heat transferring from the muffler body out to the ends here where it's going to be mounted. Now we've got these engine mounts. They're rated to 110 degrees Celsius. Pretty sure that's maybe not enough. We don't really know, but anyway, if they don't work we can change it and do something else. But for now we're going to mount it on these, 4 of these guys, and that's why we've got the extension of these sort of coming out so that we can hopefully have less heat transfer into the mount. I apologise for the technical nature of this next part, but there might be a little bit too much boingy going on with those stainless straps. So we're going to be bracing the top of the muffler on the main exhaust as well. So it's not going to be held just at the bottom, it's going to be held at the bottom and the top of the muffler to stop any sort of like resonance or wobbling going on in that muffler. I was just about to commit this to the roof, and then I saw down, let's see if I can get it to show up on the, there's a hole right there that goes all the way down the muffler. See if I can show. It's probably not going to show. There it goes, look, look, look. It's not going to do it again, flash. But that's not good. And I figure that they've done that so that it's like a rain drain. So if anything gets in the other end, it drains out the muffler. But the way that we're going to mount this, that's kind of an annoying thing to have happen, even though it's a good idea. And to quote Snoop Dogg, we don't want muffler juice in our fish shizzle. Radio, up on the top of the roof, we don't have a lot of like easy options. So the pipe's going to come up the front here, so where we've got clear space, etc. It's going to come up the front. Then we're kind of stuck because we can't have the muffler in front of the main exhaust here because solar panels. So the easiest place is to put it behind. However, putting it behind means how do we get the pipe wrapping around? And it's a side exit muffler. So if I set that up, put it sort of like that, comes out this side here, we'd have to do some sort of dog leg all the way down and back in. Just kind of is awkward and doesn't really work, plus everything starts getting really long. So I thought, okay, what about tucking it like that and doing like a bit of a quick wiggle and sort of going around. All of that's possible, but it's kind of ugly way of doing it, so that maybe not. And the exhaust outlet, I'll just hold the muffler, the exhaust outlet here comes up and it's right underneath the main stack, so that's not going to work because we're going to have one of those little flappy type lids on it. We're not going to do the curve because the curve just isn't stopping enough water going in, so we're going to have one of the little flappy ones like they do on tractors. So having it underneath here is a no-go. So the idea I keep coming back to is having it on the side here. It's not aesthetically pleasing, none of this really is, and then I'll do a little wiggle with the pipe going down. That's relatively easy to do, it's no big deal, and I can bend those stainless mounts that we've made because of the curve of the roof. I can bend those stainless mounts so that each foot angles this in the right way, and this will be vertical. It's not my ideal at all. We're going to do a shroud around all of this as well, so eventually you won't see any of this. It'll all be hidden by a shroud, but the shroud gets kind of fairly wide. They'll be horizontal like that, so it'll be about that sort of width once it's done. But the challenge I have is that weld there, and up there is the saloon. And then this side is on the outside of the boat, this side is on the inside of the boat. So whatever I do, I can't go forward like that in order to make the pipe work easier. I have to sort of come back here so that I'm on the outside of the boat. So if anything leaks, it doesn't go into the inside of the boat. So not a lot of good options, but yeah, we'll see if we can just make it work. Our first cabin name goes on with a bit of a New Zealand twist to it. If it's upside down, is it Nobahor?
Oh, can't show yet. It's a surprise. This is Damon and me. And if you don't know what this reference is, have a look at the ring movies. What is it? The Fellowship of the Ring. Ta-da!
Alright, up top, I've welded on this original bend. I'm going to cut it where you can see that line just there. I'm going to cut that, and I'm going to weld this guy onto it facing downwards so that it kind of spits the exhaust down the hole all the way down into the engine room. So essentially what I'm thinking is this top piece will be a single piece of pipe that goes right the way down to the engine room, and then we'll have a split joint down in the engine room, and we'll be able to start making multiple pieces once we're down there. But we don't need multiple pieces up here because it's just one big straight pipe we can just slide down into the hole. So the muffler's sitting where it's going to live. You can see over here it's got a little bit of a wiggle going, and it goes downwards, heads down, straight down into the engine room down there. Let's go have a look at it from the bottom. With the shroud off, you can see the main exhaust, and then you can see the bottom of the Genset exhaust. So I'm going to bring that basically straight down, following it down, and in this area we go down and into the engine room. So wherever there's a join, there's a chance for a leak, so I always try and have the least amount of joins possible, but at the same time I need to have as many joins as we need in order to be able to pull the pipes in and out. You can't have one just massive long pipe that's all welded together, because you never get it back in or out of the boat if you had to work on it. So I have a join so that I break it up into smaller pipes. Now what I'm going to do with that muffler at the top is I'm going to essentially weld it solid where it's got that little wiggle that I just showed you. I'm going to leave that there, weld that up solid, and then I'm going to weld the straight piece that goes all the way down into the engine room as a solid piece. So the top part will be the piece above the muffler itself, the little wiggle, and then probably 3 meters worth of pipe down into the engine room, and that's where the first join will be. So to do the straight length, we've got a new piece of 2-inch stainless pipe, so we're going to just cut this with the drop saw so we get a nice square cut. Using my exhaust clamping jig, a couple of clamps welded to a piece of angle iron, I'm able to join these two center to center and get a nice solid join. At the other end of the pipe, I've got the pipe stretched so we can fit it over the next piece of exhaust, and we end up with a really easy joint for our 3 meter long piece of pipe. Right, muffler has been welded to the stainless pipe. So this is our 2.5 meter length stainless pipe. There we go, all the way down there to the other end, and we've got a expansion joint just there. So it's tacked together. We need to get this up onto the roof and actually figure out, is it going to fit? Is it pointing in the right direction? A new addition to the family. We found this recently at the auction centre in town. So it is out of date, we need to get it serviced, and it looks like it's never been opened in terms of like needing to use it. So I don't know if it's worth it. Cool, we've got a relatively low cost life raft, and if they can't service it, then it was worth it. We paid 150 bucks for it, which is pretty cheap for a life raft. It's worth a shot. Yeah, it fits. Well, that's nice. Just need to get it to line up. Cool. There it is in place. So it's not fully bolted down, but it's all on the right mounts and everything. You can see it sort of tucks down there. I might be able to get you to see the camera. That sort of, there we go, sort of follows the wall down. So need to go through and fully weld this out now so that we can then start working on the mount right at the very bottom so that it aligns up and won't rattle around. So this is all welded now. You can sort of see, here we go, one of the MIG welds. They're nowhere near as pretty as TIG, but they're plenty fine for what we're going to do. Now, this is mild steel, same with the muffler and everything like that. This is stainless, so we need to paint from here up so that everything up here has been coated. I've got some ceramic high temp paint that I'm going to use. Now, this is going to fall apart. I'm under no illusion that this is a very, very short-term solution, but I have to move the boat tomorrow. We are out of time. So I will be building a stainless muffler for this Genset. However, for right now, we're going to just reuse the original because we have it. Now, Normally on a trawler you'd have individual exhausts for each engine. That's what we're sticking to. We've got a separate exhaust for this as well as our main engine over the back there. We're not going to be combining a muffler, but we also need to build a stainless muffler for the main engine. So I'm going to be building them side by side. They're going to tuck in together. They're going to probably bolt together, but they will be two separate mufflers. But that's a future problem. So it's lasting a day. We're all finished. We've packed up. So there's our long piece of stainless welded to our muffler. It's all painted up with high temp paint, so hopefully that's going to make the corrosion stay away for a little bit longer. So in the morning we'll get that up on the roof, and then we can start working on the far end, the slip joint, etc., and join that up to the genset. So hopefully maybe another day and the exhaust will be finished. In episode 360, when Dee was here doing the AC install, I managed to get the lower half of the exhaust built that joins to the piece you've just seen me make. Radiator cap's now solved, time to weld it together.
I'm not 100% confident in the welds up the top here, so what I am going to do is weld this stainless onto the tank, and then I'm going to silver solder over top of these welds here just in case, because I can't get to the inside of these welds, and I'm not confident enough to weld 1.2mm stainless onto the 0.6mm stainless that this cap lid is made out of.
Now, in order to fit this guy on top of there like that, I need to drill a hole on this tank obviously. So what I'm going to do is take these pipes out. I'm going to do a lot of the work out on the back of the boat. Now I do want to change this tank from being on top of these pipes over onto the engine, but to do that I'm actually going to make an aluminium tank because I'm not happy with the weight of this tank sitting on top of these pipes. I just had a few weeks to sort of think about it, don't like that design. So but for now I'm going to get it running with this tank, but I will be moving it as soon as I can over to an aluminium tank that's mounted on top of the engine with a rubber pipe that goes down and just connects onto this stainless pipe here. So that's our upgrade path, which will happen in a few weeks time, but right now this is a temporary fix to get this running so we can get our DC system up and going. So it's as welded as I think we're going to get all the way around that rim. I'm going to put the silver solder on now because I was thinking if I did it first I'll probably end up melting it when I did this, so let's get that done. Now I'm not much of a solderer or brazier, but I was thinking for this radiator cap I really wanted to do silicon bronze because I can TIG weld that and it's basically TIG brazing. I'm comfortable doing TIG welding, so I figured that that would be a simple solution. But for the life of me I couldn't buy silicon bronze filler rods anywhere in town, so given up on that idea, and we're going with map gas with a swirly tip thing. Apparently it gets hotter, I don't know, and we're using 45% silver solder to try and seal that cap right up. Here goes nothing. I've never used this before, so this is going to be a learning experience.
I think I need flux. And this is one of the downsides of not being a qualified welder or boilermaker or whatever when we're building this boat, is I don't know what I don't know. So, you know, I go into town and I buy the gear that we need. So I need the silver solder, I need the map torch and so on, but I don't realise that I need flux because I haven't done a trade to learn this background stuff. And it does slow down the build, and that's why over 10 years it all adds up, you know, and the boat has taken longer than we first thought. And saying all of that, from where we started to where we are now, man, we know so much more than we did when we first started, but there's still huge gaps in our knowledge, and it's really cool because doing these things we can learn them. Right now, I know I need flux to be able to do this now. Let's give this another shot with some flux this time. Actually, let's just mix that up a bit. So we'll throw a bit, I don't know how much of the stuff you use, but we'll throw a fair whack of it on there. Probably going to drip off once it gets hot, I'm guessing. Right, let's go. Roll it around. That is a ugly braze. Oh, is it supposed to turn white? Keep going, I think it's working. I think. Right, I think that's done. It's a bit of a look. Alright, I have no idea what this is supposed to look like. It looks pretty ugly to me, so I don't know. I mean, it looks, I guess, like it's not going to leak, but we won't know until we put it on there. Right, with that done, it's time to have a go at cleaning out the two keel cooling pipes that Brupeg has for the Genset. So it doesn't matter which one's which, one can be inlet and outlet, or you can swap them, it makes no difference. They're basically a set of steam pipes, so heavy wall pipes, schedule 40 pipes, which is probably about 1/4 inch or 6mm wall thickness, so really chunky. They go from here, they go right the way to the front of the boat, do a U-turn and then come all the way back. So the hot cooling water from this generator is pushed into these pipes and then basically circulated underneath the boat, so the heat is dissipated into the ocean. The main engine cooling is done exactly the same way through a separate system on the other side of the boat. So when you look at Brupeg out of the water, they're the pipes that you can see. What I need to do is clean out the water. It's been sitting in these pipes for goodness knows how long. It's probably pretty dirty, so I need to turn the hose on and just basically flush some nice clean fresh water through these pipes.
What you're seeing coming out of these pipes is stagnant fresh water that's been sitting in these pipes for maybe 6 or 7 years, so it's pretty mouldy in there. Hose has been swapped over, and after, I don't know, 20 minutes of running, it's coming out pretty clean. Right, pipe's clean, time to start putting all of this back together so we can get some coolant into the engine. And back together. Alright, time to get some coolant into these pipes. So I've just done the calculations. The keel cooling pipe has 39 litres of capacity. The engine is a Kubota D1803. It has 5.9 litres of coolant capacity, so let's call it 6 litres, and 40 litres for the keel cooling. So 46 litres, let's round it up, call it 50 litres for a total cooling capacity. What I'm going to do is, our coolant uses 750 mils per 10 litres of coolant, so it's a concentrate that you have to mix up. I'm going to assume, I'm always going to go on the conservative side because a little bit extra coolant is not going to hurt, a little bit less is going to hurt. So I've got a measuring jug here that I'm going to use. I need to put basically 3.66 litres, so I'm going to put 4 litres in and start from there, and then we'll start doing the test strips and figure out if we've got the right concentration. We have a leak. I thought these might be a problem. Absolutely not sealing on both of them. So this is basically too loose essentially, and I kind of figured that was when we started putting these on. They just went on too easy, and I thought maybe I could clamp the crap out of these and get them to hold. I'm going to tighten these up and see if I can get it to hold, but that's garbage. I tightened them up, not even close, just pissing out. I need to come up with a solution for that. The issue I'm trying to overcome here is the original keel cooling pipes have rust on the outside that's been cleaned off, so the surface is pitted. So when you put the smooth silicon pipe on, you've got a sort of a pitted surface on the inside that the coolant can find its way out of, even when you've got the hose clamps tight. My next plan was to see if I can move to hose clamps that are actually too small for these pipes and really haul on them, see if I can make that work, and this is what happened. I've just spent about 40 minutes faffing around with these. I've put smaller hose clamps on, put some anti-seize on the hose clamps so I can get them nice and tight on the bolt, cranked right up, and we've still got a leak. Like most things in rural Aussie, I'm struggling to get the exact right part that I need. So the pipe OD, the steel pipe OD is 63 millimeters. Trying to find hoses or silicon hoses that actually start off at 2 inch and then go to 63 millimeters. It's pretty difficult. So rather than waste any more time on silicon pipes trying to seal it with hose clamps, I thought about using some sort of sealant and all sorts of stuff. I'm basically trying to put lipstick on a pig. Let's fix it with something welded. Alright, the hose clamp idea didn't work. So I'm going to use one of these. Welded to one of these. Welded to one of these. Bolted to one of these. And then I'll do the other one too. Normally when I make these sort of arrangements, I like to use stainless everything. We're using steam pipe, so this is basically steel, stainless, stainless. The reason I'm using this is because the radius is so tight on this one. Of course you're going to roll around. The radius is really, really tight on this one, whereas with the stainless ones, it was a big, lazy radius. What that means is when I put it in here like that and weld it, I'm going to end up with a really tight bend, whereas with the stainless one, it was going to be very, very high, which is going to cause a lot of issues with the pipes. Now, the ones that I made originally. Now, what this means is that I have to paint all of this. So if it was stainless, I could have just left it. I don't have to do anything on the inside because we're going to have coolant, so the coolant stops rust, so don't have to worry about that. But we do have to basically put some paint over the outside. So we're going to lose the stainless effect, but it's all good, it won't matter. What I do need to do is cut these guys here. I need to slice the thread, so I'll slice it down here, and then I'll weld the hose tail end onto this piece of steel here. So we'll end up essentially with basically that. So a hose tail welded onto a flange, and then we'll get another flange like so, and I'm going to weld that onto the boat. So this is going to be welded onto the cooling pipes themselves, and then this will bolt to that. Now what I'll do is put studs, or actually just bolts. I'll put bolts through here, and I'll weld the head of the bolt onto the stainless flange, and then when the bolt is sticking up, basically, so it's welded on here, flip it over and the bolt sticks up, you got yourself a nice little stud that you can just put this straight down on and just do your nuts up. Makes it really easy. You don't have to faff around trying to get spanners and all that sort of stuff underneath it. I feel like it's taken ages to get to a point where I can actually show you what this blue machine is that we had donated to the project probably a couple of months back now. This was donated by Christopher Vol. It's a welding rotator. So what that means is when you're welding like pipes and circular things,
and you're doing it on a bench, you join them up and then you weld it. You have to roll it, prop it up against something, weld the next bit, roll it, prop it up, weld it, etc. Versus a welding rotator where you tack your parts up, then you put them in the welding rotator, and you can just basically sit there. You got a little foot pedal, you can press the button, and you can just go around and just keep dabbing in, and you end up with a perfect weld right the way around. Now you can adjust the speed, so you can go really slow, you can go really fast, or flat out, just depends on what you need. Awesome little piece of kit to get really great welds on pipes and things like that. Thanks Chris, this is incredible. Something that we've longed for years on this boat, and it's amazing to finally have one. Thank you very much.
Initially I'm using pulse TIG, so you'll see the TIG sort of pulse every half second. This goes high amp, low amp, high amp, low amp, and it gives you the ability to really fuse the pipe together, and then it backs off the heat so that it can solidify rather than blowing holes in the pipe. This is one of the first times I've ever used a welding rotator, and as you can see my earth clamp is spinning around with the work. Normally you can have a specific earth clamp, a copper strap that allows it to rotate without having to reposition the earth clamp. I don't have one of those at this time. I've since built one, so I can now use the welding rotator without the need for my clamp having to be on the workpiece.
You can see that weld kind of comes up pretty uniform and clean with some pretty horrific technique. So I'm chuffed with that. Earth strap. Let's find out if it's going to work.
And this is using normal TIG. You can see there's no pulsing going on with the TIG. It's just straight DC current.
Alright, now that we got these guys, two of them welded together, it's time to start welding the flange that goes onto the boat so that we can bolt these guys down to the boat. Alright, so I've got the pipes off as you can see, and I've taken the water out. I've put a little bit of compressed air down this one here with a rag, and it's pushed the water out on this side, so now the water level is down, we can weld to it. What I want to do is just clean up the surface here with the grinder just to get it weldable. We're going to take these flanges, stick them over top like that, and weld onto it. So we only need to clean up this surface here, and we'll be able to
weld onto the flange onto the actual pipe itself. Now the issue that we have is these are quite close together, so if you see, if we put that there, you're not going to fit a flange of the same size, etc. right next to it. So what we have to do is scallop the flange off on both of them so that they sort of end up being like a figure of 8, if that makes sense. They're going to be quite tight together, and we have to do exactly the same on the other side, the flange that has the 90-degree welded to it. So my best guesstimate for where this all needs to sit, so the pipes need to link up in that orientation there, so get rid of those guys. I've put a notch in there because with this one sitting where it needs to sit, over here like that, let's see if I can line it up. You can kind of see how those two notches allow for both of them to be there, but at the same time it gives the bolts clearance. So let's go and cut those out and see if it works. A little bit of faffing around, and you can see we've done this little zigzag thing pattern in here, but it allows the two of them to sit side by side. We can still get bolts into both of them. I'll probably cut one rubber gasket that does both of them because we don't need to separate it, and that means we also don't have really small thin areas in here where we're trying to seal up. If we do one larger one, we can just clamp it with two bolts quite close together. So let's get these welded to the boat. Right, I've given the rim of each of these a grind up, and then I've clamped these to a piece of flat stainless so we can weld those on like so, and then we know that they're basically in line with each other. They're going to be parallel. We don't have any weird angles going on. So what I plan to do is just run a pretty chunky bead all the way around the inside of these guys here. I don't think I'll weld these. I don't think I need to. Maybe I should, I don't know. But yeah, basically, so once they're welded on there, they'll be pretty watertight, and then these guys here will go down with a pretty chunky 3mm rubber gasket that will seal everything up, and we've got 5/8 bolts that bolt everything down. So it should be watertight at that point, and that's how you deal with a leaking hose clip. Will either make it very easy or very hard to get rubber pipes lined off. So what I want to do is sit these guys where they're going to go and just make sure it's going to work essentially before I commit to welding them, because once they're welded, these are never coming off. Yeah, we can make hoses work. Right, when joining mild steel to stainless, you want to use a 309 filler rod, or if you're using MIG, you use 309 wire. Basically, the composition of 309 is really good at joining dissimilar metals. So you can weld, say, 304 stainless to 316, or 309 to 316, etc. Or you can do mild steel to stainless of any of the different types. But 309 is a really good multi-purpose rod. I have heard of people even doing cast iron with 309. It's a pretty cool filler rod to have in your toolbox. Alright, now that these guys are welded on, it's time to get some black rubber and make up a gasket for this thing. This black rubber is a 3mm thick nitrile rubber, so we use it on all of our gaskets in the engine room and the fuel tanks and that sort of thing, anywhere where diesel or fuel or oil can touch it. So although this is just water, antifreeze can be a bit corrosive and can sometimes attack various gaskets and things like that. So this is a nitrile rubber, is pretty hardy to most things, but also it's around the fuel system. So if we ever get any fuel or oil or anything touching it, it means that it's not going to destroy that gasket. That's why I'm going to be using the nitrile rubber on this joint. There we go, two flanges, relatively flat, large 3mm thick gasket. With one hand it's a wee bit hard to get the holes to line up, but eventually they do line up. They're not perfect, but they're good enough that we can get our flanges on there bolted up nice and tight. There they go, nice and solidly bolted down. So that's going to be awesome because we're going to be easily able to clamp that up nice and tight and not have to worry about leaks. Right, next thing I need to do is join these pipes to these ones, so we have to cut these back at these black lines here.
there's not a huge amount of room on here to add a silicone pipe. You can see there with that little bracket, there's only, I don't know, 3/4 of an inch, 20 centimeters at most, not even that, 15 mil, something like that. So this one's okay, but this one here, we're gonna have to deal with this pipe here, this little bracket. So I'll probably cut that off and just move that at the same time. Pipes cut. Now, do they line up perfect? No. Will we make it work? Yes. See? It worked. This one here does a bit of a wiggle like that.
I could make these pipes line up better if I redesigned the front curve of the stainless pipe. However, yes, the silicone has a bend in it, but it's not so much that I'm worried about it, and there's enough flex in the silicone to allow for that. I did think about welding the stainless pipes directly onto the 90-degree steam bends that I have welded onto these flanges, so there's no silicone in the system at this point. However, I want the silicone there to allow for some vibration.
There's about 30, 40 mil, something like that, clamping on, and whatever the length of that hose tail, on this end. So there's probably 50 mil there, 40 mil there. There's plenty of room. The rest of them are all attached now, so we can start putting some antifreeze in this and actually see if it holds some water. Last bit going in. This is the last litre. But you can see there's nothing coming out. So I think we've solved the problem. So let's get this in and then fill up the balance with water. Start her up, see how we go. Oh, I left that specifically up to my DC electrician to figure out.
Fuck off, you. No, you did not.
Next episode, the generator fires up, Damon arrives, and we get deep into the DC electrical install, which has some surprises. See you next week.